Welcome back to the Garden Hutch. Today we'll discuss our plan for growing potatoes in 2023. Let's get going. Potatoes are a vegetable that many gardeners overlook. For us, Leslie and I began growing them about 3 years ago. The first year we grew them, we got quite a few. I think we got 65, 70 pounds, so that was way more than what we expected. And then last year we tried something a little bit different and it didn't work out at all. So this year we took a bit of a different approach. Our goal is going to be to grow enough potatoes to where we just don't have to buy any from the store. Because right now, really the only things that we buy from the store from a vegetable standpoint are carrots, potatoes, and onions. The onions I think we have figured out, but we'll see. We did really well last year. The carrots, we're gonna have a lot of them in June. So I'm hoping that this new carrot bed kind of solves that, which leaves potatoes. So I thought we'd take a bit today and just kind of go through our plan to try to alleviate buying potatoes from the grocery store. So our plan for this year is going to be twofold. The first part of that plan is, as you see in front of you, these are the spring potatoes. We planted these at the very end of February. In fact, I think it was the last weekend of February, which was like the 24th or 25th. I'd have to go back and look. But what we did is we planted 2 rows of potatoes in this raised bed, and we only went about halfway down. You can see here on the back side of this down there, it's open now, but we are going to be growing some summer greens in there. Now, the idea is that during the early part of the summer, whenever our potatoes will be coming out of this bed, our gardens are going to be prolific, hopefully. That's about the same time we'll be pulling all of our carrots. Our cucumbers will start putting off. We'll also be eating the first rounds of our beets and turnips, that sort of thing. In fact, almost everything will start producing right there in the middle to beginning of June. So that's the reason we did the half bed. What we're hoping is that we grow enough out of these 2 rows in this one bed to prevent us from having to buy potatoes from June right up until the end of November. So I'm not sure how many potatoes we really eat. I probably should have started weighing them out, but I thought to start it would be a good idea just to see how many potatoes I could get from this specific area. So just real quick, I wanted to reiterate, I don't have any expectations when it comes to how many potatoes we're going to get from this row. The big things I want to take away from the first part of this plan are, can I get a spring crop of potatoes? Meaning we put them in February, can we time it where they come out in June and then have them to eat through that part of the early and midsummer, so that we can kind of vary our recipes, and that might also help us maximize how many cucumbers we can pickle, how many tomatoes we can freeze, that sort of thing. The other thing I want to make sure that I know how to do is that I can actually grow potatoes regularly and get the most out of the area. Because even if we only get X amount out of this and it's not enough to sustain us for the amount of time that I want, at least now I know how much room it takes to grow X amount of potatoes. So the second part of our 2023 potato plan consists of planting this entire bed in potatoes. And we want to do that in the fall, probably the first week of September. So if my math is correct, we should be able to plant this entire row here last week, or the first week of September, I'm sorry. And then we should be able to dig the potatoes up from this around the last week of November or the first week of December. Now, the reason that this is important is around that same time, again, we should be getting our fall crop of our carrots. We will also be getting a lot of beets, turnip greens, that sort of thing. And so what we're hoping is we can learn to preserve our potatoes in a cold cellar, or more likely a closet if I'm being honest, and see how long we can actually make them last. Because if we can make the potatoes last us until, say, the end of March, well, that changes things a lot for us, because by the end of March, we're getting salads every day, radishes, we're getting turnips, that sort of thing. So if we can just get enough potatoes to last us through that dead period, as I call it, in the winter, that's going to be a huge win for us. Now, I know I keep saying this, but I just want to reiterate, I don't have any expectations on how many potatoes that we'll have. The important part is going to be making sure that I get the timing down for the spring and fall plantings, and I know when to dig them up. And the second is going to be that I keep note and keep track of how many potatoes are grown in this area. That way I can at least have an idea of, per this square footage, this is the weight of potatoes that I can expect. So once we get all of this information, right, once we make sure that we know when to plant our spring potatoes, when they're coming out of the ground, how much to expect in the spring, and then in the fall we plant the entire bed, find out how many potatoes we can get from that, make sure we put them in correctly, take them out at the correct time. The next step is to find out how many potatoes we got, and from there, do we need to grow more, or is the room we have sufficient? The other option is we could do the first half of the bed in the spring. We could also have a summer crop that comes out at the end of August and then replant a whole nother long crop at the beginning of September. So whenever you put all of these things together, it's going to be a couple years before we have a real solid homestead approach to potatoes. The good thing is potatoes in our area are really inexpensive. The other downside to that, though, is that there's usually a lot of chemicals and pesticides. And let's be frank, if you have a homestead, you want to grow all your own food. That's why we're doing this. You know, it's not so much saving the money, it's can we do it? We know where it comes from, that sort of thing. But we feel like we have a really solid approach to how to get to self-sufficiency on potatoes. And we'll keep you folks informed, of course, on how this whole plan plays out through the course of the year. As always, I appreciate all you folks watching. Till next time, I hope you all take care of yourselves. Peace.